Good morning to one and all. I am Dr. Nataraj Palaniappan. I am one of the consultants in intensive care services of Rainbow Children's Hospital, Chennai. In the midst of the pandemic of COVID, I am here to talk to you about HFNC, which is also called as high flow nasal cannula. Now we know that COVID-19, the main treatment is the supportive treatment, and in the supportive treatment of the respiratory system is the most important one. So we have known over a period of 3 months that invasive ventilation increases mortality and morbidity, and the only boon for us now, they have said, is HFNC. Now from the pediatric world and the neonatal world, there are certain things which has translated or gone extrapolated to the adult world. One of them is HFNC, the other one is obviously the HF4, high frequency oscillators. But today we'll be talking about the HFNC, and I'll be concentrating only on the troubleshooting of HFNC. Whenever any clinicians in any place starts HFNC, what are the nitty-gritties of starting HFNC and what to expect. So we'll be going about a couple of slides about what is high flow, what are the indications and contraindications, what are the advantages, how to monitor, and what is the final summary of this. Okay, now we know that this is a level of support which is offered for any respiratory system. So initially you have the low flow, then comes the HFNC, then you go up the ladder, the CPAP, BiPAP, invasive, finally going on to the ECMO. There are still a couple of patients on ECMO in developed countries, but as far as developing countries, we cannot afford all this high-end ventilator support. And we have studies have proven that HFNC support or maximum BiPAP support is more than enough to decrease the mortality in these patients. So now coming to the examples of low flow and high flow system. So these are the few examples of low flow system: a simple cannula, nasal cannula, transtracheal catheter, the mask, and partial rebreathing mask. And the high flow systems are the Venturi, high flow nasal cannula, resuscitation bag, hyperbaric oxygens. Now you can notice that the non-rebreathing mask is present in both the low flow and the high flow systems. So what does a low flow and high flow actually mean? Just a 5 liters of oxygen doesn't mean it's a low flow, and 15 liters of oxygen doesn't mean it's high flow. It's not the flow which determines whether it is low or high flow. It's the patient's inspiratory demands. Are you meeting the patient's inspiratory demands? Suppose if you are not meeting the patient's inspiratory demand, in spite of keeping a 15 liters of oxygen flow, you are still considered to be on a low flow system. So high flow system are the systems in which you match or give more than the patient's inspiratory demand. So this ranges from 2 to 60 liters, which is the one which is achieved. These are the examples of the high flow systems: the OptiFlow or the Airvo2, which is from the Fisher and Paykel, the Vapotherm, and the Comfort Flow. But as of now in India, we have the Fisher and Paykel system, which is widely used. So this system, will be talking mainly about the Fisher and Paykel because that's the one which is mainly used, and there in all the district hospitals and majority of the hospitals in India. So you can have the OptiFlow ranges from 2 to 15 liters, and the Airvo2, which the pediatric side, which is extrapolated to the adult sides, can use is maximum of 60 liters. So this advantages of high flow nasal cannula. So the high flow, actually it is a heated and humidified high flow nasal cannula. That means it always is a heated, the circuit comes as a heated, and it comes with humidified. It's a 100% relative humidity which is given to the patient, and it's one of the major forms of non-invasive ventilation therapy. So this is the basic setup of the high flow nasal cannula. You have the oxygen, you don't need the blender outside, only in the neonatal one, which is the with neonatal one you need the blender. The Airvo2, OptiFlow, you need the blender. The Airvo2 doesn't need the blender outside, just the flow meter, oxygen flow meter is enough, which goes to the system, and from the air, your atmospheric air is drawn into the system, where there is a turbine jet generated, and through this inspiratory circuit it goes to the patient through the nasal cannula. So what is the basic principle of HFNC? The basic principle of HFNC, it follows the Bernoulli's principle, where the pressure and the speed or the velocity is interrelated. Once the speed of the flow of the gases increases, the pressure decreases. That's the Bernoulli's principle, also called as the jet mixing. So you have the higher pressure and lower speed here, but as you come towards the cannula side, your oxygen increases the speed, but the pressure decreases, and the patient is very comfortable, and this is delivered through a small nostrils. So what are the indications of HFNC and few contraindications where you should be very sure that you should not start a patient on HFNC. During the COVID times, any patient with respiratory distress, especially for the age appropriate, especially if it's an adult, if your respiratory rate is more than 30, or if it's a pediatric, if your respiratory rate is more than 40, you can start this child on HFNC, especially if the saturation is less than 92. The other thing is your PF ratio. That is your PaO2 by FiO2 ratio. If it's less than 300, you can start this kids on HFNC. And if you happen to take a CT scan and if your lung infiltrates is more than 50% by 24 to 48 hours, these are the adult patients who are candidates for the HFNC. You start off the main contraindications for the HFNC is if you are in type 2 respiratory failure, which is mainly hypercapnic respiratory failure, especially in patients with cystic fibrosis or a chronic COPD patients or unconscious patients. For HFNC, you should be very conscious. You should be able to cooperate with the HFNC. If you are unconscious, if your GCS is very low for some reason, you should not start this kind of patients on HFNC. The other patients are if you are on severe hemodynamic instability, that is you are severely hypotensive, your perfusion is very bad, such patients warrants intubation directly. The other one is if there is any airway obstruction, either to the trauma to the face or there is a tumor or a mass in the nostrils, you obviously will not be able to deliver the required flow to the patient. And the other obvious contraindications is this sometimes gives a false sense of security that if you are on HFNC with 100% and maximum flows without monitoring, this patients can have a delayed intubation and mortality can increase. We can see about this later on. So coming to the advantages. So the major advantages of HFNC is your circuit. It is very soft circuit nostrils and it is loose fitting and it is very comfortable to the patients. Most of the patients prefer it, and they facilitate your secretions removal and they prevent desiccations because it's heated and a humidified circuit. And coming to PEEP is still controversial in HFNC. If the patient keeps his mouth closed and you are able to deliver good amount of flow, then you can generate a PEEP of 2 to 7. So whether you generate 2 or 7, we cannot test it on the patient bedside. So that's why you cannot have a documented PEEP in this setup. And the other ones is you can wash out your upper airway CO2s. Some amount of CO2 clearance happens in HFNC, and you can reduce your work of breathing by generating PEEP, and you can wash out the dead space. The other latest in this COVID times, the most important thing is you can actually do prone ventilation or a proning in HFNC. We all know that proning in any severe ARDS improves the ventilation perfusion mismatch, and you can the atelectatic lower part of the lungs is all recruited back. So you can do proning as well as put this patient on HFNC simultaneously in this kids. The other important thing is you can actually speak to the concern, voice your concern, speak to your relatives. You can eat if there is no contraindications. So all those things is permitted when you are on HFNC, which is not possible if you are on a CPAP or a BiPAP or obviously ventilated. Some of the disadvantages, as I said, is you are not able to measure the PEEP. So if you are according to the Berlin criteria for the ARDS, for you to say it's a mild, moderate or a severe ARDS, you should deliver a PEEP of minimum of 5. Now what PEEP you are delivering in HFNC, you do not know. So you might misdiagnose a mild ARDS as a severe ARDS or a severe ARDS as a mild ARDS. The other one is a false sense of security that you are on HFNC and it might delay your intubations. The other most important disadvantage which I feel is there is no battery backup. The current generation of HFNC doesn't have a battery backup, so the patient cannot move around with this system, and nor this system used for a transport. Like if you are taking a patient for a CT scan or a MRI, you should obviously disconnect from the HFNC. And probably the next generations of HFNC will have a battery backup. Now coming to the most important parts, that is the practical aspects of HFNC circuit. As we know which is the HFNC circuit, so I'll be dealing with only the Fisher and Paykel for now because that's the one which is widely used. So before putting any patient on the HFNC, you should always make sure that the circuit is disinfected. Without disinfection, do not put any patient on the HFNC. So disinfection is a very simple process, and you always have a red tubing which comes with the HFNC circuit, and when you switch on for 55 minutes of disinfection, which will come later, you can do it for 55 minutes at 90 degrees. The entire circuit and the machine gets disinfected, and always disinfected between the patient use. And once you have disinfected, the circuit can show actually a green light, that means you can go ahead with the use of the HFNC. If it's showing a orange light, that means the disinfection is outdated and you have to redo the entire thing. So this is the green light which says that you can go ahead and use this patient, use the HFNC for the patient, and the orange one here says that you have to redo the disinfection. The other important thing is the water. You should always use a sterile water, do not use a saline or anything. Make sure the water in the bottle is appropriate and adequately filled, and this is the water level blue mark here. Make sure that the blue mark is, obviously it is just below the blue mark, so make sure, otherwise the system gets more heated. And the other important part is the cannula, the nasal cannula. This is actually, you can select the cannula based on the tolerance and the objective. Suppose you need a higher PEEP, you can select a higher cannula size provided the patient is cooperative. And usually what they say is the cannula size should be approximately 50% of your nostrils, because that's the only way the patient can breathe out. There is no expiratory valve like in CPAP or other ventilations. The patient has to breathe out, and there is a constant flow of air coming in, and the patient has to breathe out against this flow, which they usually get used to in couple of minutes of starting the HFNC. And we know that this circuit cannula size comes for 2 to 6 liters of flow, different one like the adult, junior, nasal comes, and you can actually use the HFNC even in a tracheostomist patient. There is a separate interface which comes for that, and there is a mask interface. The pediatric circuits are purple and they are given as 2 to 25 liters and they are humidified at only 34 degrees. The adult one can withstand up to 60 liters and they come in 3 different temperature settings. The other important thing is the click water bottle, water level here. If it's not properly sitting on the plate here, like here, it should be properly sitting like this. If it's outside, the plate is not properly kept, the heating system might get overheated and the tubings might rupture. And this is also, it should be properly connected like this. If it's not properly connected, you can always have the leak in the circuit. And this is the condensate or the water particles which is being condensed in the tubings. So always make sure this circuit is always kept below the head level of the patient. If it's above the head level of the patient, there is lot of all this condensate can go into the nostrils of the patients and he might have irritations and you might actually give a kind of VAP to the patient, ventilator associated pneumonia. The water particles can go in and cause some amount of pneumonia. And whenever you have this kind of situation, you disconnect the patient from the interface and drain the condensate into the water chamber. You can decrease the ambient temperature, and prolonged heating of the same thing can damage the system. So coming to the two main things, there are only two things which you can set in the HFNC. One is the FiO2, the other is the flow. Now coming to the flow, if it's a pediatric patient, you can start any patients on 0.5 liters per kg. Suppose a 10 kg state patient, start him on 5 liters of flow and slowly hike up to a maximum of 2 liters per kg. That is a 20 liters of flow for a patient weighing 10 kgs. If it's an adult patient, you can start this patient on 30 liters of flow and then slowly grade up to 60 liters, which is the maximum. See where the patient is comfortable, or if you need more alveolar recruitment, more PEEP, or the patient's inspirated demand is more, then you can go up of flow to the maximum of 60 liters. Usually 30 to 60 liters is the adult requirement. And always, whenever you start HFNC, wait for few minutes before you connect onto the patient. Suppose you put the patient, suppose you touch the, set the temperature as say 37 and a flow of 30 liters and a FiO2 of say 40%. It takes at least a couple of minutes for the system to be humidified and the temperature to come to 37, and then you can start this patient. If you start the patient immediately on the HFNC, your dry and cold air will go on to the patient and there's chances that the patient may not cooperate. So before putting the nostrils or into the patient, always wait for a couple of minutes and then connect the patient. Once you have achieved or wait for a few minutes before its programmed temperature and humidification is reached. Now coming to the FiO2. The FiO2 is usually on the flow meter where you can increase and adjust the FiO2. So this always target the FiO2 between 88 and 92. Start the patient on HFNC when your saturation is less than 92. Do not target more than 92, or some patients, some articles says 94, because hyperoxia, as all of us know, oxygen is also a drug. Hyperoxia can also have severe damages like increasing free radical injuries, and especially in adult patients when a lot of thrombi is known and they can have MI like presentations. This hyperoxia can cause coronary vasoconstriction and can paradoxically increase the infarct, and they can have a sudden cardiac arrest, worsen the cardiac arrest. And the other thing it does in the respiratory is if you increase your oxygen, you can have a pulmonary vasodilatation. So there is a sudden gush vasodilatation and sudden increased flow to the lungs, and you can have a VQ mismatch, and these patients can have a very severe hemodynamic instability and can actually collapse. So always your target of FiO2 or saturation should always be between 88 to 92. Target your FiO2 to attain the saturation of 88 to 92. There are a couple of reports saying that the patients, especially in settings where you have huge number of patients and you cannot have 1:1 nursing, if the patient needs more oxygen, they themselves increase the oxygen, which is actually you have to explain to the patient not to do so. The other way you can do is you actually can set the FiO2 on the flow alarm, for which you have to go to the factory mode of the Fisher and Paykel circuit. You have to press the alarm button and the up and down button simultaneously for few seconds. Go into the factory mode where you can set your FiO2 alarm to say 60, and say whenever the patient tries to increase, it will alarm, so you can come back and educate the patient and reduce the FiO2 to the target reached. The other thing is based on the PF ratio, which I have already told you, the PEEP of 5, but it is very difficult to attain in the HFNC circuit, because you do not know amount of PEEP generated. The other important thing is in the HFNC circuit, always there is lot of ventilation slots behind the HFNC circuit. So do not keep the HFNC circuit very close to the wall, so that there is no, because it is the combination or mixing of the oxygen and the atmospheric air. If you keep the HFNC circuit close to the wall, there is not more good amount of atmospheric air which comes in. So the ventilation slots are closed by either keeping it close to the wall or putting a cloth or anything. So avoid doing those things. And coming to nebulization on HFNC, this is a very important slide. The nebulizations you can use with the jet nebulization as here, or the Fisher and Paykel supplies a nebulization chamber which can be used to nebulize these patients. The only thing is we can actually, because the patient is already getting a flow of say 25-30 liters, till 25 liters you can use the circuit. Along with that jet, the nebulized particles goes in. Suppose if your flow is already 40-50 liters, because it's a huge flow, the nebulization will never enter the patient's system. So always when you are nebulizing a patient, and the patient is on very high flow, say 40-50 liters, you have to remove the HFNC circuit during that time, give a separate nebulization, and then put the HFNC back after the nebulization is complete. But if the flow is less than 25 liters, you can actually connect it along with the circuit like this, and you can use the MDA as here, or you can even use put a 3 ml of solution in the nebulizing chamber and allow it for 10 to 15 minutes of nebulization. So the flow is the important one here for the bronchodilator therapy. And in HFNC, if you have the flow is not, you are not able to achieve the flow. So you have to troubleshoot and see why you are not able to achieve the flow. See where there is a leak or the nostrils is disconnected. The other important thing is the filter. So you can see at the back of all the HFNC, the power cord, the connectors, everything, there is an air filter here. And because it's the air, atmospheric air, which is coming from outside to inside the system here, there is a lot of dirt particles which get accumulated in the air filters. So depending on the city you live in, you might have to change the air filter 1 to 2 every 2 months, otherwise you will not get an adequate flow. There are some practical tips for the patient related. Usually majority of the patients do very well on HFNC circuits. There is very minimal adverse events or untoward events with HFNC circuit. So since it's a heated and humidified circuit, the most common thing which we get is, because it's heat which generates and your nasal, there is a vasodilatation and you get lot of secretions, aqueous secretions, rhinitis. So clearance of the secretions is the most important thing. If you're not able to clear, sometimes they might get irritated. If your nostrils is too long inside or too deep or touching the mucosa, they might irritate your nostrils and you might have a mild nasal bleeding and nasal trauma. And as I said, the condensate, if it's not properly kept or the circuit is just at the level of the patient or above the patient level, some of the few water droplets can go into the nostrils. Some patients do experience paradoxical suffocation initially when you start the HFNC. That is because there is a constant flow of gas which comes in and the patient has to breathe out against this. But once you explain to the patient in a couple of minutes, they should easily settle down to this. And the other couple of things is mobility of the patient. You are restricted to the bed when you are on HFNC for all your daily needs and everything. You should take the help of the nursing staff. Occasionally some patients can have abdominal distension because this air, most of them goes to the lungs, and there is some amount obviously which goes to the tummy, abdomen also. So if you have severe abdominal distensions, some clinicians might put a NG tube to decompress the abdomen, and that's a major patient related things. The other ones are occasionally you might have a pneumothorax if your flow is too high, which is very rare, and I have actually not seen any patient on HFNC with a pneumothorax. So what to expect once you put a patient on the HFNC? What do you expect? Usually within couple of hours you will see a decreasing heart rate. Heart rate is one of the important things. If you are a tachycardic and dyspneic, desaturated, and you put these patients on the HFNC, you will see the heart rate settling down, the saturation settling down, and the patient breathing much more comfortably and easily. So if you think there is worsening in spite of putting these patients on the HFNC, your saturation is still desaturating, or is very dyspneic, is not able to tolerate the HFNC, or is having a severe hemodynamic instability, then go ahead and intubate these patients. Coming to the weaning. The weaning is actually very simple. It's not a complicated as if you are on a long-term ventilation. There are only two things in HFNC. One is the flow and the other one is the FiO2. The first one to come down is the FiO2, sorry. So once your FiO2, whatever you are at 60 or 80, if you are able to wean it down to 0.4, 40% of FiO2, then start reducing it to flows. So if it's a pediatric push patients, if you are up to 25% of the flows, or if it's adult patient, you are less than 30 liters of flow, then you can switch directly, transition them directly to the low flow system and can start your weaning again in the low flow system. So couple of clinical indications where you use the HFNC. As I already said, HFNC is usually or initially used in the pediatric age groups. They started off with the preterm hyaline membrane disease, then the acute bronchiolitis, and weaning from the invasive ventilation, using it in the post-op patients. So slowly this was the scope of the HFNC increased to pneumonia, especially now in COVID times. Most of the patients are put on HFNC trial before they are either put on CPAP. If you have HFNC, they put on a HFNC trial before you put on to the CPAP or BiPAP. Then the other indications are post-extubation stridor, asthma, cardiac failure. And HFNC is very useful if you are pre-oxygenating these patients before intubations, and if the patient is immunocompromised. We know in immunocompromised patients, inhalation has increased mortality. You try to avoid ventilation in this kind of patients. So put these patients on HFNC. Neuromuscular diseases with mild to moderate distress and oxygenation during bronchoscopy, it's very useful, and post-cardiac surgeries. So in summary, HFNC is very safe and simple to use. The indications and protocols might vary from institution to institution, but intense clinical monitoring is the key. You should know when to increase the flows and FiO2 and when to come down. Continuous keeping the FiO2s to target a saturation of 99 might be harmful in any patients, and especially in patients who are having COVID pneumonias. So you can avoid many intubations when adequately you are monitored. It's not a replacement for the invasive ventilation, but you can always use it as a trial, and if the patient improves, you can continue on the HFNC. And the last thing is, if you still want to see the demonstrations of the AirVo2 or the how to run a HFNC and how to troubleshoot, there is an app which is there in both the Android as well as the Play Store. You can download the app and you can see the various modalities there. Thank you.